It all started with a simple idea, a weekend getaway. My friends and I, tired of the relentless grind of city life, decided to rent a cabin in the woods for some much-needed relaxation. We found a place called Willow Creek Cabin, tucked away in a remote part of the forest. The pictures online showed a charming, rustic cabin surrounded by towering pine trees and a tranquil creek running nearby. It seemed perfect. We arrived at Willow Creek Cabin on a Friday afternoon. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the forest. The cabin was even more picturesque in person, with its wooden exterior and large windows overlooking the creek. We unpacked our bags and settled in, excited for a weekend of peace and quiet. As the first night fell, we gathered in the living room, which was centered around a large stone fireplace. We lit a fire, its warm glow filling the room as we chatted and laughed. Outside, the forest was dark and silent. The only sound the gentle babbling of the creek. It was perfect. Around midnight, we decided to call it a night. The fire had burned down to embers, and we were all feeling the effects of the long drive. We split up into our respective rooms. I shared a room with my best friend, Mike, while our friends, Jenny and Tom, took the other bedroom. I was just drifting off to sleep when I heard it, a faint whispering. At first I thought it was the wind, but the whispers grew louder, more distinct. It sounded like someone was talking just outside our window. I got out of bed and walked over to the window, peering out into the darkness. There was nothing there. "Did you hear that?" Mike asked, sitting up in bed. "Yeah," I reply, my voice barely a whisper. It sounded like someone talking. We both listened intently, but the whispering had stopped. After a few minutes, we shrugged it off as our imaginations playing tricks on us and went back to bed. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next morning, we woke up to a beautiful day. The sun was shining, and the air was crisp and fresh. We spent the day hiking through the woods, exploring the area around the cabin. We found an old, abandoned mine a few miles from the cabin and spent some time poking around the entrance. It was eerie, with its gaping mouth like a black hole, but we didn't dare go inside. As the sun began to set, we made our way back to the cabin. We cooked dinner over the fire and spent the evening playing board games and telling stories. The strange whispers from the night before were all but forgotten. That night I was awoken again, this time by a loud banging sound. It echoed through the cabin, startling me awake. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened. The banging continued, a rhythmic thumping that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Mike, wake up," I whisper urgently, shaking him awake. "What is it?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Mike listened for a moment and then nodded. "Yeah. What the hell is that?" We got out of bed and crept out of our room, the floorboards creaking under our feet. The banging was louder in the hallway, echoing through the cabin. We followed the sound to the living room, where we found Jenny and Tom already there, looking as terrified as we felt. "What's going on?" Jenny asked, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," I reply, my voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to find out." We followed the sound to the basement door. The banging was coming from behind it, loud and insistent. I reached out with a trembling hand and slowly opened the door. The sound stopped abruptly, and we were met with an eerie silence. "Should we go down?" Tom asked, his voice shaky. "We have to," I said, though every fiber of my being was screaming at me to run. We grabbed a couple of flashlights and descended the creaky wooden stairs into the basement. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell of damp earth filled our noses. The basement was cluttered with old furniture and boxes, all covered in a thick layer of dust. We shone our flashlights around, searching for the source of the noise. In the far corner, we found an old wooden truck. It looked ancient, its surface covered in strange symbols that I didn't recognize. "Do you think that's it?" Mike asked, pointing at the trunk. "Only one way to find out," I reply. I approached the trunk cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached out to open it, the banging started again, louder than ever. It was coming from inside the trunk. I hesitated, then with a deep breath, we buried the trunk and hurried back to the cabin, hoping that would be the end of it. But that night, the real terror began. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. I lay still, listening as the footsteps grew closer, stopping just outside our door. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought it might burst. The door creaked open slowly, and I saw a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. It was tall and thin, with long, spindly fingers that seemed to stretch towards me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure stepped into the room, its eyes glowing an eerie red. Mike woke up and saw the figure too. He let out a strangled cry and reached for the lamp on the bedside table. The light flickered on, and the figure vanished, leaving us in a state of shock. "We need to leave," Mike said, his voice shaking. "Now." We woke Jenny and Tom and told them what had happened. They agreed that we needed to get out of the cabin immediately. We packed our bags in a frenzy and hurried to the car. As we drove away, I looked back at the cabin and saw the shadowy figure standing in the window, watching us leave. We drove through the night, not stopping until we were miles away from Willow Creek Cabin. We found a motel and checked in, all of us shaken to sleep. We spent the night huddled together, trying to make sense of what had happened. The next day, we returned to the city, each of us carrying the weight of that terrifying weekend. We never spoke of it again, as if talking about it would make it more real. But I knew that we had encountered something evil, something that still haunted my nightmares. Years have passed since that weekend, but I can still see the shadowy figure in my dreams, its red eyes burning into my soul. I've tried to move on, but the memory of Willow Creek Cabin lingers, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories.